Hey everyone, welcome to Being with Cari on the Ultimate Coach podcast. I am excited to have a wonderful guest today. His name is Wayne Upchurch, and he is here to talk all about being. Wayne, thanks for being here. How are you today?
I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. Grateful that you're here.
It's been a long
So
time since we've known each other and we've not actually had a conversation like this.
it's true.
I'm
It's
excited for that.
true. How long has it been? It's been, it
I've
has been
lost
a
count.
while, hasn't it?
It has since an early book reading session.
Last season.
Mm, right, not even season six, it's season
Not even
five.
season's five, so about a
Yeah,
year and a half.
yeah,
Wow. Wow,
yeah,
that's wonderful.
yeah.
I'm glad that we have this opportunity now.
Me too.
So, of course, the podcast is all about being. It's called Being with Cari, and I just love to talk about how you're being, what you're being, what being means to you. We were talking a little bit before we started recording, and one thing that you said was you said something, you gave a little chuckle, and then you talked about how um, that chuckle was because tend to see things as like, in my words, as dramatic, as massive, as life or death, I believe is the word you used. And yeah, and we put such weight on everything we do and every choice we make. And tell me about how you find that as not a, should we say, smooth way of being for you?
Ooh, yeah. Even knowing we were going to talk today and we were going to record it, and it would be a podcast episode. I could feel the part of me that wanted to put a lot of weight on that, to use that term. And oh God, if I don't screw it up or look stupid or ruin it by being too pontificating or whatever ways I could make up about about the weight on it and the consequences of it all.
Right.
And so it's always been a part of me. I've gotten that feedback. I think a lot of my life is you're so serious, or what do you do to have fun? And I'm going, what do you mean fun? There was a part of me that was so serious that I really couldn't connect with just being and having fun, having things be fun. Um, and so I think that having that distinction show up in a coaching call this week has just really brought home how freeing it is not to put that weight on every little thing and every little encounter, and how that I know that in my mind. I know that sort of in my, I'll call it a creative or artistic sense that I have, that's how elegantly loosening the grip on seriousness opens up possibilities and just allows for flow, free flow, and conversation rather than the way I used to try to do it. So yeah, that's a long word.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
I think that's a very common thing in our society is putting that weight on every choice we make.
Mm.
And I have my thoughts about where that comes from, but where do you think that comes from or why that's such a thing?
The first thought that comes to mind is we were trained that way,
Mhm.
and there's probably something to be noticed there. And in a way, I think even this chuckle that I'm bringing to it is like, maybe it's that, maybe it's not. Maybe I don't need to know why or how it happened. And the thing that the being movement's really brought to me is to be in the present and notice the thoughts and the feelings. I mean, that's even the strong advice about how to read the ultimate coach is to read it about oneself. There's a lot of past in the story of Steve. And so I can look at, in some ways, how we're alike and how we're different just in my impressions from the story, filtered through my own impressions, my own filters. But it all just comes back down to who am I being now, and who do I need to be for what I authentically want in the present, right now, just authentic, from feelings, thoughts, everything on board. And I suppose I come to it at this stage in life. I'm 76, and I could get all judgmental on myself and go, why did it take you so long? But literally, I'm just pleased as punch that it caught, that I'm still here to notice it and to learn from it and to grow from it. And it just feels like everything is an opening now. Everything is a possibility. And that's just shifted my whole life. And it's allowed me to show up and sort of have the experience of actually creating a lot of what I thought I might never get a chance to do, or I might think I want to, but I'm not sure I want to. All those things about I could make up about the worthiness of something I wanted to create, or my worthiness to create it. But just being with it in the present and just saying, well, what if I take a step? What if I open up? What if I create something, try it on? So far, it hasn't been life or death.
It's so interesting with that there's a couple things you said in there that all tie together for me that I find
Okay.
really interesting. Um, when you at the very first, at the very beginning, when you said you were worried about if you screw it up, right? And I'm putting that in air quotes because
Yeah.
that's not a real thing. We can't screw this up, right? And it took me a long time to learn that. And I've been doing it for at least 2.5 years. And that was very much one of my fears at the beginning too. And I mean, we've been recording for what, 7 minutes now, and I could literally go back and name like three things where I'm like, I could fix that, or I could change that, or maybe I shouldn't have said that word. Oh well. Oh well. It shows that authenticity, it shows the realness, and that's one thing I love about being able to create this platform in the way that I want to is I want the organic and I want the authentic because it shows how human each of us are. I have a friend, just this dear friend who he puts so much weight on every step he takes, and he's so afraid to take a step. And I get it. I used to be there. I used to not be able to do anything until I saw the end from the beginning because I wanted it to be perfect. And it very much ties into what you said of how we're raised that way. That's grounded into us that you need to try and be perfect. But if we even go back to the Book of Being and we look at Steve's life was not perfect. Steve nowadays is not perfect. And I know a lot of people put him up on this pedestal, and in ways he should be, but he's still human.
Yeah.
He's still human. And it's the humanness of each of us, I think, is what ties us all together at our core. And all we have to be is ourselves, whatever that looks like. And it's such a beautiful thing.
It is. There's definitely a component of who knew.
Absolutely. You have been one who, from my occurrence of you, you're such a light in this community. You're such an example of how to be without hesitation or without seeming hesitation. Because I know you and I have talked about some technical things with
Mm-hmm.
different things, and you're like, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to figure it out. And I'm like, wow, that's so wonderful. What was that shift for you where you were able to just step forward and say, here's possibility? Was there one thing or was it a plethora of things?
just really does feel like it's been unfolding. And part of, I think, the freedom might be coming from noticing from this perspective of all these years of experience and looking back and connecting some dots, like noticing a through line or some threads that have always been there. One that comes to mind, just as an example of one, is one I tell fairly often, but it was pivotal for me, and that was during my second marriage before it blew apart and taught me the greatest lesson of my life. I was in a group therapy, a group counseling session, and we were given a guided imagery to visit our wise elder for a gift. And what I saw was purely visual. There were no words. And so I was invited to draw what I saw when I came out of it and share it with the room. And the image was of an irregular, rounded, cornered, softened edged mirror shard. And it had like attached places, like holes where a leather thong sort of thing was attached to it. And it was literally laid in my hands in the image, in the vision. So I came out of that and shared it, and the wise facilitator in the room said, "Would you like to experience being the mirror today?" And I look back on that even now and go, I don't even know how I could say yes to that. How I naturally, easily said, okay. And I went to each person and saw and mirrored back to them who they were being. For me, what I saw. And to a person, it's my recollection, to a person, they each went, yep, that's me. And that has lived with me, so that's one example that I can point back to about if I was going to sum up what coaching is, it's being the mirror that I wear around my heart so people can see themselves. And that's just profound for me to even consider, just looking at it from the outside. But it's one example of how who I get to be today has been threaded through everything. And so it's not like a major overhaul. It really feels like an awakening. It feels like oh, well, of course, this is where I was headed the whole time. And what's next? Right?
I love that. For me, it felt like when you said awakening, for me, it felt like an enlightening where I was
Nice.
in this darkness of, yeah, of just, the beliefs that I had about myself and life and what was right and what was wrong, and everybody else had to live by, what I thought was right or wrong. And it was like you're taking the brick down and you're letting a little bit more light in and you're letting a little bit more light in until you're like, oh, this is reality. Reality is what it is. This is what it is. And it's this freeing. For me, it was very freeing. I remember I had a conversation in one of these very early on, so a few years ago, with Casey Gilman. I don't know if you know Casey.
Yeah, I don't know him
He-
personally, but yeah.
Amazing, amazing man. But he was the first one to ever say, to where it sunk into me. He may not have been the first one to say it to me, but I remember this is when it sunk in. Is we were having a one of these live conversations, and he just said, you don't have to change and be anything different than what you already are. All you have to do is just let go of the things that aren't working for you. And that to me was like a breath of fresh air, because in my head, I was like, there's all these things that are not what I want. that make up me, and I have to change everything. And so that was this huge task list, and it felt very overwhelming. And he's like, "You're already there. You
Yeah.
just have piled a couple of things on top of you. Just let those go." And I'm like, "Oh, oh, that's freeing, very freeing."
Mm. One thing that's coming up from your feedback too is I just got off a coaching call where I'm coaching my first client, and how I still feel like I'm in there sometimes trying to, you know, work my way into position somehow to make the difference I think I want to make, and make it, be responsible for how it turns out and all that sort of stuff. Um, and some of what seemed to show up during that experience today was so much of how what's next and what we're capable of when we do allow ourselves to just be and live is already present. And there's just some people have called that it you're right there if you just lean forward a little bit. And that was present in the conversation with her today. It was just like, and I began to actually see it happen in our conversation. I began to see it happen in her during the call, where she moved past how we started, and some things started really connecting. And I almost wanted to go, I see that connected, and give her the feedback. Did you see what just happened? But there was a sort of an appreciation, and maybe it comes from that cosmic joke of it all, but where it was okay that I didn't actually put a pin in it. I just allowed her to have the experience, allowed her to pull those things together and watch her do it, and just love her while she does it, and close the call. So it's not a, it's, I forget sometimes, what's that phrase, show the work, show your work. It's like you can come with the conclusion or with the solution. I can come with that and look great. But sometimes showing the work makes it a more valuable, relatable message on the other side of the communication. So, and I say that in relation to a group call I was in the other day, where I realized that there was some work I wanted to do to have the relationship I want to have and be in, and it wasn't all settled. I didn't know the wisdom I might have, but it wasn't present with me yet, right? And so I allowed that. There was some stuff there I needed to clean up. I could see what some of that was. I don't know what it will take to create it, who I'll get to be to create it. That's going to be the juice of it, for sure. And just the awareness of it has allowed me to take small steps, one at a time, to recreate that in simple communication. Again, that's kind of one of the great things I've come away from the Ultimate Coach book appreciating, is the example of Steve and other people in the community who simply say, I love you, and keep repeating it. Say it again, say it again. Don't take for granted that it landed. Don't take for granted that it wouldn't land differently today. Right? Just keep creating it. And that's humbling. It's that's showing up to me right now as humbling in a new way, just because it's so simple, and it is an action I can take responsibility to create. Right? I can step into the responsibility to create a relationship through those simple steps, and then allow what wants to be created, I guess, one way I could put it. But
I love that you go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Keep
was just
going.
going to say, to tie it up, that uh, I used to be really afraid to show up um, not looking good and feeling embarrassed. The underlying feeling I was trying to avoid was feeling embarrassed and unlovable and not enough. Never wanted to feel that again. So I built an awful lot of strategies to protect myself from that. And I'm not immune to that. And I think this last 2 years connected with the being community and showing up in it, and your impression of me was not one I expected people would have of me in this community when I first joined it. I joined it hoping I could feel that I could belonged, without really believing I could yet.
Yeah, I understand that.
It happened after my first connection, after allowing myself to buy the book in the first place. I bought it on Audible and listened to it. And then I joined after the Arizona event coming up again, but after the Arizona event in January of 24. And there was an after party Zoom call. I joined that call out of curiosity as much as anything. And even though it was for people who had been there, I wasn't there. Why did I have the audacity to? So something was moving me to connect, to jump in there. And I had learned the value of being in rooms with people I would aspire to be more like, to show up there, feel the pull, and answer it. So toward the end of the call, some people had talked about belonging, and I felt the nudge to say, I belong here, and I put it in the chat, which was a bold move for me. And in the chat, it might go unnoticed, but it didn't. Here in the being community, people notice. So somebody echoed it, and I went, okay, now I'm seen. Now I'm here. And the belonging unfolded out of that, and then the book readings, where you graciously gave me a book, because I had the Audible version, and on the call it was like the invitation was to be one of the readers. The back of the book or the first 2 pages, and I didn't have a physical book, so it's like I suddenly wanted to belong in a more active way, and you noticed and graciously offered me the book. So that's the beginning of our connection, and I'll always be grateful for that. And it was a lesson. It was a beautiful lesson, because I saw myself trying to argue you out of sending me the book, and that was about self-worth. That might not be obvious, but that was about self-worth. It was like, no, I have the book. I already have the book. I'm not without the book. I didn't want to show up that noob looking or something like that. But in the middle of arguing with you about it, I went, you idiot. Why don't you just allow yourself to accept the gift? In the spirit in which it's given. I got the spirit it was given in and said, yes, here's my address. So you were a pivotal moment in my belonging to this community.
Thank you for allowing me to do that. I'll be honest, we have people show up to the book readings all the time, and they just have the audio file. They don't have a paper copy or a digital copy or whatever. They don't have the paper copy in their hands. And there was just something that said, get him a book. And I was like, okay, that's easy enough, right? But it allows it allowed me to serve, which is, at my core, part of who I am is love and service. But it also allowed me to hear whatever was telling me, whether it's intuition,
Yeah.
higher power, God, the universe, whatever. It allowed me, and it served me because it allowed me to hear my own voice and then distinguish, is that just a thought or is that inspiration? And then follow through with that and get a confirmation of, yeah, this is what you needed to do. So your allowing me to serve you served me at the same time. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Truly.
So welcome.
Yeah. And I see, I mean, I've seen you in this community. I saw you get on stage
Mm.
at the Ultimate Experience in January of this year. And I will never forget, you were not there at TUE 24, correct?
No, was not.
Okay. That was the first time you had ever been in a room with these people, and the cheer that went up when you got on stage. You are so loved and so appreciated in this community because of what you bring and who you be, and allowing yourself to step into this new, not new, but unpracticed version of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. That's one thing I love about this community. It's the support that's there, but the people watching people blossom and becoming, oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the times, I know for me, I thought people who are in this group are powerhouses, and they make major steps in their life, and I'm just here taking tiny steps. And there's something that Nick Smith says a
Mm.
lot. And and for anybody who doesn't know, he and Ryan created a tribe of giants on Facebook. Nick wrote The Giants and the Smalls, the book. They have a lot to do with this same community, their own community. It's the same kind of concept. It's the self-awareness about who are you being. But he talks a lot about people being giants.
Yeah.
That's part of what the book is about. And he said about the book one time, giants still take small steps. They're just a little bit bigger.
Small for
And so
them.
you look at the Steve Hardisons or the Steve Chandlers or these people who are revered as these amazing individuals, and they still take small steps from time to time. And that's part of our experience.
Getting to read the book in community has been really powerful. So seeing Steve take those steps himself, seeing him get to where he could, I mean, all kinds of things I could say about it, but reading the chapter that talked about the last day he saw his father, who promised to take him to the mountains, that surprised me how deeply it reached me. And in the moment, then and now, I don't even know why. I mean, I think I can understand some of why and feel into it, but just the noticing of, I mean, you evoke that just talking about it, about the book, about Steve, and I can see from the feeling around that what a giant step it is to step through that experience and to own what for Steve, and what I see about Steve is that he has strong feelings. So they've been the blessing curse for a lot of us in community, especially, or in families and in worlds. And that just seems to be where the rubber meets the road a lot. And that, for me, I guess it really does bring it back to, okay, given all that, who are you going to be? You noticed something. You said something else a minute ago about the new and not new, and that's the other thing I keep speaking to in my experience of being in the community, including showing up on stage that time was is definitely was both new and not new. Sometimes I experienced going into new communities and being just keeping my mouth shut, my ears open, and getting the lay of the land and deciding where it was safe to be, which parts of me, and all those things. And then once I became comfortable, then I would be more available, more obvious, more expressive. And people would go, "You've grown so much since you got here." And I'm going, "No, I've just let you see who I am." And as far as my experience being in the being community for the even for the first half a year, I guess, was that's no longer true in that old way of experiencing. I have grown since I've been here. It's not just I'm showing up more. It's taken growing to show up more, because the challenge is worthy and it's in alignment somehow with some part of me that brought me here. So turning that around, I think every conversation perhaps carries the possibility to see and acknowledge that in whoever I'm talking with. So, yeah, that's coming home to me.
There's some things about growth that have been coming over my Facebook feed
Mm.
recently, and one thing, and this isn't, I'm not going to be able to quote it exactly, but somebody had written something and said the key to growth is to step just enough into that fear or that resistance to challenge yourself to
Mm.
create change.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this huge thing. I don't have to get on a plane and fly somewhere and be in a completely different area. I can literally step through the doorway of my office into my dining room
Yeah.
and do something different. And it doesn't have to be a massive. It just enough. Just step up to that resistance or that fear, just enough to challenge yourself,
Yeah.
to challenge your norm. And as you make that tiny shift, you take that tiny uh, step, as we could say, there's even tiny growth is still growth. Even small change is still change. And that's the key. That's why, my motto for this year was do it scared. I started off this year doing something and it was even before I spoke on stage, which was scary, but at the same time it wasn't, because I knew I was stepping into somebody that I already was. Again, had just been holding myself back. But
Mm-hmm.
there was something that happened within this community um, that was more public for me. I shouldn't say more, but it made me public in a way that I hadn't been used to yet before the TUE event, and it was recorded, and I can go back and watch it and be like, I was scared. I had three other people in the Zoom with me, and I was scared to speak up. I was scared to say anything. And I think that for the first like 12 minutes, I sat there and didn't say a word until somebody finally was like, "Hey, Cari, like, you're here. Why don't you say something?" And I was like, "Do it scared." That's really good. But I think I'm going to take that on as just my life motto of do it scared, because if everything we do, we have an assurance around or a comfortability with, there is no growth. There is no change. Staying in your comfort zone protects you and it halts you.
Yeah. Protects the safe you. Right.
I've learned that Cari doesn't want to be safe anymore. Cari's learning to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. and it's still uncomfortable. It just, I can run that dialogue. It's like I was talking about there at the very beginning of this. I said like two or three things where I immediately thought, wish I hadn't have said that, or oh, I wish I could go back and change that because I don't edit these at all. There's no editing. I love the rawness and the realness of it. And then immediately I was able to think, that's okay. It doesn't matter. Shows my humanness, shows that I forget words sometimes. It shows that this is live and that it's not, edited in any way, and it's okay. And that took a long time for me to be able to run that cycle, but it's a practice and it's a
It's a practice
step after step after step
for me too.
until it becomes natural and that authentic you is just front and center.
Yeah, what strikes me as you spun that out was there'd be nothing to celebrate
Yeah.
if we didn't take that step, and we'd never get to experience the thrill of creation, the thrill of the fullness of knowing ourselves in a bigger way, or in a way that's real.
Yeah.
It's yeah, built into us.
I love that. I love that celebrating your small
Yeah,
victories.
yeah,
I was raised where you don't say anything good about yourself, period. Period. Even to yourself, you don't say anything good about yourself because then you're being arrogant and cocky and boastful. And I was at the dollar store, I don't know, 6 months ago, and I found these little, I mean, they're like this big, they're tiny. They're like half ounce, three, I don't even know. I don't know ounces very well. I don't know measurements and weights. But they're little Martinellis, the like bubbly grape juice or
okay,
apple juice kind of thing, but
yeah.
they're tiny and you can guzzle them down in like two swallows. But it I bought a bunch of them and I thought, you know what? I need to learn how to celebrate my small victories. I need to learn how to acknowledge myself. And so I would do something different. And I would go to the fridge and I'd be like, oh, I'm celebrating and like, play some music and dance and swig the thing down. And it was just that reminder of, yeah, every little change is change.
Yeah.
And every little shift is still a shift. And
What's coming up
it's
for me too is Ralph Corkle was always talking about we have a human ourselves, right? It's like I get to treat that little kid who learned all those, lies, if you will, almost, that we made up about ourselves back then. We get to treat that kid to a celebration.
a beautiful practice. I love the practice of being because it is a practice.
It is.
It's not necessarily easy. Even some of the
It's
greatest human beings on this planet that I know, none of them are perfect. Some of them still have those old dialogues that come up from time to time, and we keep practicing.
yeah. It's easier too to have compassion for people who are making it hard when they don't have to.
Yeah, yeah. So,
And they may have to for a while, but you know. Hmm.
all right. Well, my friend, our time is
Yeah,
coming to a
yeah.
close. It's been so wonderful talking to you. Is there anything else you would like to share before we close?
Just a little impression I had there as we were talking about that, and it was like it's a practice, and there's a there's a scene from the scene from the Frankenstein movie, the one, the funny one, right? It says, "It's alive." It's a practice. It's alive. That's how I
Yeah,
know I'm alive. I'm practicing.
wonderful. Wayne, thanks for being on the show
Well,
today. Thanks for
thank you.
bringing who you are and who you are being and showing up in just powerful ways.
Back at you, and I receive it fully. Um, yeah.
All right.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for continuing this podcast. And congratulations on fulfilling your promise to yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone, this is the end of this episode. Make sure that you look up Wayne. We will have all contact information for him in the show notes. But if you want to have an call him, we'll give you his info. If you want to have more conversations like this with Wayne, feel free to reach out and contact him. Thanks for being with us. Love you all.
Peace out.